Hello and welcome to another episode of Broken Lance Hobbies. Today on this episode we're going to be doing uh, a bit of a hybrid between painting video, not necessarily a guide because like I say I'm not that great, but also my video quality when filming isn't that great either. I'm still learning all the process of this, so please bear with all the chops and changes. What we're going to be doing is I'm going to be talking about Imperial Guard kit, I sort of spoke about in the intro video, Imperial Guard Astra Militarum gear, and then how that translates to an analog in the real world, to the real world versions of the kit. Obviously, the militaries of the world aren't off fighting aliens and over the grimdark far future across the galaxy, but militaries still use equipment very similar to what you see in the Astra Militarum. Bearing in mind, the Astra Militarum is meant to be the grounded in reality team of 40k. Or that's at least how I perceive it, and I'm sure a lot of other people do as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk through, whilst I paint up a Cadian, I'm going to talk through what I'm painting up, what they're wearing, what it would be like in real life, what's the closest sort of looking real world analog to it, and then we'll go through it from there, and then hopefully you can learn some stuff if you don't already know. Hopefully my painting will improve and my video editing will improve along the way. So yeah, let's dive right in. So as you can see here, I start off by getting the combat patrol out. I identify which of the miniatures I want to make. I go for one with a relatively dynamic pose. The video is sped up, as you can see. I spend a good minute or so figuring out where they are on the sprue. The good thing about these sprues is obviously they're all numbered, but there's a lot of them when you get the big combat patrol boxes, and there's a lot to sift and sort through. But eventually, I identify where I need to be going with it. One thing I do like with the new Astra Militarum is just how dynamic they are. They do look like they are going through a war zone and cutting about as soldiers should do, whereas the original previous sculpts were quite sedentary. Still little X on the painting stations, actually where generally my camera focus should be. So, okay, bit of knife safety here going in with it. We always want to make sure that we're controlling the knife, looking after ourselves, and if you're a nipper, if you're a kiddie, don't use a knife or get an adult to help. As you can see, I'm just trimming away any flash from the clippers. The new clippers I've got, which are some Warlord Games ones, are actually infinitely better than the cheap ones I was using before, and they're making it a lot easier to just get down with what I need to be clipping out and stripping down. That's the body all clipped out. As you can see here, all clipped out. I've gone for the torso, standard torso. The guy's running forwards. He's got belt kit, bayonet, and then he's got a little jack sack or a small day sack on his back with a little Geiger counter. So this is going to be the guy that we're going to build up today. Now, looking at these Cadians, you can see here from reference pictures, they've got their fatigues on, their body armor. We've got the original, third edition codex sort of included artwork, which really left an impression on me as a young'un. And then you can see the newer sculpt on the left and that newer artwork on the right, and you can see how they've modernized it. So what I go through now is I just glue the body together. I've lost the I've lost the metal sort of syringes for the multiple Revel polymer cement sets I've got lying around. So what I do is I just dip a bit onto my painting station and then use a metal sort of molding tool. And there he is. There's our guardsman all together. I didn't use the arms that they said I should have used. I've used some different ones because he's got a more dynamic pose if he's running in to clear a final bound position. I did debate whether or not to put the bayonet on, but I just don't get along with the bayonet lugs and mounting on these because they're a bit iffy on this pattern of lasgun. There you go, all sprayed up and good to go. These are the squad he's going to join. This is one of my more modified set squads where I just use sort of off-the-shelf bits with the Cadian upgrade sprue or various Cadian kits to just sort of give more dynamic posing. They're part of a Street Fighter group, so they're going to be more urbanized. So what paints am I using for this little painting project? So for all my Cadians, I use a khaki grey from Vallejo, a model color line, and then that's for the fatigues. For the armor, I use US dark green, again Vallejo model color line. For the flesh, I use Citadel color Cadian flesh tone. That's a good layer paint. I find it's perfect for Cadians, almost as if it's in the name. For the boots, I used Cadian Flesh for the main colour of the boots, and then the leatherwork, such as their belt kit, their webbing. And then for any of the straps and stuff like that, I tend to use green grey from Model Colour, the Vallejo range. And then for any metalwork, I use Lead Belcher from Citadel. So as you can see here, I'm just shaking up that khaki grey to get that nice and ready to be put onto the palette. So as pretty much with anybody now, thinning it down, you'll thin the paints down, get a bit of water in there, thin the paints down, and then start getting it applied. You can see on the reference picture there that the Cadians, this is quite a new reference picture off the interwebs. The Cadians have got brown pouches and their green armour, but their uniform, their khaki fatigues are sort of like these. These are BDUs on the right, which is the old American battle dress uniform style gear. Material generally quite robust and quite thick wearing, good for more robust environments. On the left there is a set of Cry, which is a more modern sort of combat uniform that started coming in around the late or mid to late 2000s as the global war on terror sort of came on. This was, warfighters and soldiers and former soldiers and operators designing new kit to be used. And that's Gen 4 Cry kit. So that's the newest, as of time of recording, the newest sort of iteration that's being issued to special forces across the world, and like the Royal Marines have switched across to Cry. Obviously, they're in multicam, but this is a set in khaki, which was sort of sticking with that Cadian theme. And then as we move on, you can sort of see we've got here a picture of Minkalesque, the fantastic Minkalesque novel from the Justin Hill novels. If you've not read them, I highly recommend reading them as sort of a bit of, they were my primer for what's been going on in the world of the Astra Militarum since I left the hobby as a teen, pre-Cadia falling, even though Cadia stands. So she's my hero for the new generation of Cadians, and I love all the books around her. So as you can see there, though, she's wearing the new generation of Cadian kit. So with the new sculpts, it's still khaki grey battle dress, but they've got more Cry-like knee pads in them. So I've put there on the right a picture of Cry Gen 2s. I think these are Cry Gen 2 khaki combat trousers. So they're a bit of an older generation. They're still very much in line with what they make now. Cry were the sort of first ones to capitalise on the built-in knee pad idea. Now I've got a set of these I wear for work when we're doing some more urban and rugged stuff, and as I've got older, my knees have started to get worse and worse, so I like having built-in knee pads. Not always favourable amongst the regimental sergeant majors of the world, but they're fantastic bits of kit, rough, rugged, robust, and if you were street fighting or fighting in a hive, you'd probably be wanting a pair of these. If you were a Catachan in a jungle, maybe not. Because like I said, with the BDUs and the Cry kit, they can be quite heavier material, but more robust in comparison to the normal sort of stuff that armies get issued. Now, thinking to that then, armies are going to get issued, especially guard armies, they're going to get issued thousands and millions and thousands, hundreds of thousands and millions of sets of kit. So it's going to be cheap kit. Now, military grade is generally always made by the lowest bidder. That's the sort of thing. But in some cases, and in a lot of cases, they sort of get it right. Now, I think that the combat uniform the British Army gets is really good. We've had a few growth pains with it, but we're there now with the PCS 23 and then the barrack shirts and stuff like that. But what you can see on the screen there is British Army PCS, or Personal Clothing Systems uniform. Now, this is what is issued currently to the British Army. There's a new version of it coming in, which is slightly different fits, more tighter, more gusted trousers, or less gusted trousers, but more stretch panels, more designed for taking in and stuff. So we're getting a more modern version of this camouflage uniform. But the thing with this stuff is it's not terribly thin, but it's thin enough that it dries quickly. If I know I'm going to get soaking wet, I'll wear issued MTP because it dries really quickly. In the jungle, people prefer to wear, and generally you prefer to wear PCS because you don't care if it gets ripped, and it's really easy to repair, and it just dries so much quicker than anything else because it's a lot thinner than everything else. But yeah, I've got a lot of experience wearing this stuff, and sort of if I was a Catachan jungle fighter, I'd probably be wearing a pair of them trousers with some extra knee padding put on, a bit more robust knee. If I was a Cadian cutting about in a city fight in a hive, I'd probably be wearing BDUs, not too far away from what they're wearing now, which is like modern Cry kit. So what I'm moving on to now is painting the boots. As you can see on this Cadian right now, and then a load of the older reference pictures. This guy here in the 3rd edition reference picture that still goes so hard is wearing black combat boots. Now, back in the day, most countries got issued like combat boots. I know I got issued a few, not too dissimilar to these when I was when I first joined the army. So that's a black leather, robust, combat molded, like direct molded sole, combat high boot that was in use up until, and with still in service with a lot of countries. But Britain has moved across to brown boots unless you're in the Royal Tank Regiment. And then I think the Americans have moved across to brown as well for sort of like canvas boots. And then, but the black leather combat boot is an iconic piece of military hardware, ranging from the Second World War up until the 2000 end of the 2000s. But on this model, I'm sort of painting it in brown boots to simulate like the Altbergs we get issued in the British Army now. I still love my Altbergs. I have a pair of sneakers that were made in the factory in Yorkshire, and they are fantastic. And I wear them day to day in camp. And then I have a pair of brown lows for in the field because I just find them better for my feet. But yeah, brown leather boots on these Cadians is the way I'm going with this. So onto the armour now. What we've got here is some Vallejo US dark green. That's what I used to colour the armour in on my Cadians. As you can see there in that first reference picture, this is one of the newer reference pictures with the more modern art style. The Cadian there has her knee pads on. She's got Creed Live stenciled on her armour, and she's taken a bit of a battering. That sort of reflects that, I guess, that the Cadians are a more experienced and less well supported force at this point in the 41st or 42nd, who knows, millennium. But yeah, I think this image goes really, really hard. Just as with, I know people say they're basic, but I do genuinely love the aesthetic of the Cadians. And then, as we see here with the new, this was the reveal of the new sculpt just before I got back into the hobby, so I didn't see this image. But like, you can just see they're more dynamically posed. It's a really good mix on the armor of like modern day flak armor and body armor, and then they've got sort of that sci-fi-esque thing with the shoulder pads, and then a bit of a World War II thing going on with the webbing. It's a real mishmash of generations, but it all fits into this kind of real and rugged aesthetic. Now you can see there again. I love this picture of the model of Minkelesque, both as a junior NCO and as an officer when she's got her sword. Although I will point out that in the book she has an Acatran pattern lasgun, which I'll go on to in a bit. But beggars can't be choosers. I got the model and I love it. But yeah, good to see the armor there. It's torso and shoulder pad armor with nothing really covering the gut. Sort of like a modern day plate carrier, but we've got more armored under the arms. Which leads us quite handsomely onto what is there in the real world that looks like 40k armor? What's actually real and practical and applicable for the guardsmen? What would a guardsman be wearing today if they were in the real life? And it's not this Wish.com Team budget airsoft body armor. That is not going to stop a paperclip. It's just for people that want to look cool airsofting or cosplaying. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, because that's cool, but it has not got any ballistic properties whatsoever. So no army's going to wear stuff like that, unless it's the sort of the padded stuff that goes under riot gear for crowd control. What we would wear, and what could be like a modern day analog of guard kit, is this. This is an olive green version of the Virtus kit that the British Army get issues. This is made by Source, and I think the olive green goes pretty well. But yeah, so that is similar, almost exactly the same bar the colour to what we get issued in the British Army, as you can see here. The Virtus kit, it's a scalable tactical vest, and basically what that allows us to do is add and remove pouches to it as necessary, and then we can add more armour to it. So you can see the Cadians have shoulder pads. Here you can see we've got shoulder pads on these, but they're not really hard armour, they're soft armour. They still can be quite limiting on movement, so you can't really raise your arms up and like vertically, so you can't really put your hands above your head, but they do add a bit more blast protection. So I think that's pretty neat that the armour is scalable. Now the armour has got like ballistic plates in on the chest and back, and then you can fit them on, as I say, scalable, so you can put some on the sides, or you can go on just stuff without sides. Whereas the 40k like sci-fi armour is going to be trying to stop, las guns and stuff like that, but they don't really stop a bolter shell or anything spicy. That, I mean, a bolter shell is probably the equivalent to a Warrior 30mm round going through you, so they ain't really going to do much on infantry worn body armour. But that's the modern day analog. As you can see there, they've got the Virtus with the shoulder pads on, And yeah, I just think it's pretty neat that that's sort of where we're at. Then if you go ahead, you look at the sort of just above the boots, the soldiers wearing, the guardsmen wearing gaiters, or spats or puttees, whatever you want to call them. We don't really, I mean, some people do, and I appreciate it. I know I've worn mine on like night navigation and stuff like that when I'm moving through wet terrain, but gaiters and puttees and stuff, just to protect your boots and the top and the bottom of your trousers from getting any ingress of something nasty in there. And you know, when you're like running through nettles and stuff like that, and gorse bushes, that's going to protect your legs a bit. So you can't underestimate the value of a good pair of gaiters. We move on now to helmets, and I'm just doing a different colour on this one because he's wearing a helmet cover, and I'll cover that in a second. But what I first want to talk about is the real world analogues, where we're at in the modern day military. What I've put up here is a British Army Virtus helmet. Now, this is the most recent and current generation of combat helmet in the British Army, having worn 3 generations, the Mark 6 Alpha, Mark 6, Mark 7, and now the Virtus. I can say that this is lighter and much more modern and much more comfortable compared to the others. The others were heavier, older designs, more like ballistic layering and stuff. But this newer, lighter materials, new strap system on it, it's really good. And what I've put up there is the Virtus in its full glory with the mandible, which is that jaw protection, and the visor. So it starts to look a bit like a Cadian Kazakin helmet or a Cadian sort of like hazardous environment helmet. Now, in the real world, these are going to be worn by crews on open architecture vehicles, such as the Jackal, which I'll throw a picture of up here, and then anytime somebody's like on top cover. But what it can be also used for is public order training. So when soldiers are doing, you know, riot control and stuff like that, just as a contingency planning. So that's what that's used for. Now, most helmets come brand new. They'll in the factory. They don't have camouflage on them, and they'll just sort of look like this picture I'm going to put up here. With just the the sort of stippling on them, and then armies add helmet covers to them. Now, a helmet cover is normally just a bit of cloth fabric, which is identical to the camouflage worn by that country. And for us, it's multi-terrain pattern or MTP. Goes over the top, and then you're good to go. Another thing that we can do is scrim our helmets, which I'll go into in a second. So what I'm planning to do with this model here is I've put a light olive green on, or not a light olive green. I've put the Vallejo olive green camouflage on onto the model, and then I'm going to try and turn it into this, which is an Italian version of US M81 tricolor woodland, or US M81, which in my opinion is probably one of the best woodland camouflages on the world. It's one of the most proliferated camouflages on the planet, manufactured in some variant by everybody. So that's going to be the little helmet cover I paint up on this one. I'm also going to show you another helmet, just a normal standard Cadian green, non-helmet covered lid, which I'll paint in the background as well. And then now I'm going to talk about helmet scrimming, which is a personal thing of mine. We started doing it. The British Army's sort of always done it, but when you scrim a helmet, essentially you're breaking up the shape. Now, the shape of a helmet is round. Not many things in nature are round. The human head is round, so it can draw your eyes to it if the enemy was sort of looking for you. So what we do is we scrim our helmets, and we use bits of camouflage fabric material from spare old uniforms that we cut up, or we can use live camouflage, which is, I used to hear a saying that says "veg has the edge," and that's where you put like bits of grass and tufts of stuff that you see in the helmets, and that breaks the shape up and makes you blend in more naturally. But like for me, and the picture shows here, net over the helmet, bit of fabric tied on there, and it just breaks up the shape. I'll put another one up of an earlier bit of scrim I had on an older helmet. We can see it was a bit bigger, and then you added more and more weight to the helmet by putting more and more material on. So there's it's all down to individual sort of users there, what we want and what you want your helmet to do. Mine's quite sparse now, but it still does the job of breaking up the shape. Some people like to have absolutely loads on there where it looks like they're a floating mushroom. So that's down to personal preference, as long as it breaks up the shape and makes it not look like a human head. So moving on now to personal weapons like the lasgun, the humble lasgun, as we see here in this truly badass 3rd edition picture, which was the actual box art when I started collecting. You could pay like, God, I'm not sure if it was 15 to 18 quid, but you'd get 20 guardsmen in a box. and it had this is the cover, and it was so cool. Really, really good bit of artwork. And as you can see there, the guardsman on the front left, he's got one of the Cantrell pattern las guns, which is what the Cadians used to carry pretty much all the way through up until the remodeling in the tail end of the 9th, where they started carrying a mixed match of those and what I guess we'll look at in a second, but it's sort of a mix between two patterns. So the Cantrell las gun then, if we look at las gun patterns here in this picture, it's the just on the left side and just like the bottom middle. That very much looks like a modern day assault rifle would do. If you've ever seen if you've had much experience with firearms or you just see them in movies, that looks like your M4, M16 type Armalite style rifle. Now, because we're British over here and we're in the land of Warhammer World and Games Workshop, and my imagination of what this represents in a real world thing, I'd say this looks very similar to the L1A1 SLR, which, if you believe the rumours of the Cold War veterans that used it, have the same stopping power as the Death Star, which is the only reason I can guess is they made it look like this, and nothing to do with the fact it's just a familiar shape. But do we have las guns in real life? No, we don't, because if we did, well, they wouldn't be as nearly as cool as they are in film and TV. A real laser weapon at the moment looks like this. It's mounted on the back of a truck or on a warship, and they require quite a bit of energy, and they're very silent. It sounds like ticking, and they just superheat something, can knock it out of the sky. Great for counter UAS, counter unmanned aerial systems, drones, stuff like that, and counter battery fire. So, or like if somebody's dropping bombs on you, they're like becoming available to like shoot missiles out the sky. So it's a very cheap way of defending yourself, but not crew served or crew portable or like usable by a personal as a soldier's personal weapon. So that's why we don't have real world las gun analogs, but we do have firearms that we can link it to, like the L1A1 SLR. So I'm going to put that picture up again of all the different patterns of las guns. And you can see here, we've got on the left-hand side, your sort of standard Armalite style stuff, which would look like an M16, but like at the triplex at the top, that to me just looks like a bog standard comedy, like sci-fi las gun. And I know it's one of the older pattern like designs, but it, to me, sort of just, we'll get onto it in a second, because like you can sort of link the common, if you look at the barrels and the flash eliminators, they've all got sort of a common style. So triplex, I will find a real world analog to link that to, but the Lucius pattern to me looks like it should be a Lee Enfield or something like that, or maybe probably an M14 or an M21 American rifle. So it's got like the magazine, box magazine on the bottom, then it's got like that normal old school rifle stock, grip and trigger assembly. Moving down back to the Cantrell, we said that looks like the L1A1 SLR or the M16 type weapon systems. And then we've got the Galaxy. Now, the Galaxy and the Voss, to me, look almost exactly the same, but they're carbines. So the way I'd link that to would be like an M1 carbine for the Americans from the Second World War, and then the paracarbine version for them in the Second World War. So if you've seen the Pacific, they're all carrying M1 carbines, but if you watch Band of Brothers, they carry the M1 like paracarbine, and I'll put some pictures up over there. The Mars pattern and the Riser, I don't really think they have any real world analogs. I mean, the Mars sort of again looks like one of these old school bolt action rifles, and the Riser, I guess, just looks like a Super Soaker. But quids into whoever's wielding something that looks like that in real life, because that just, you wouldn't catch me modelling any of my minis with it. But that's good, because that's sort of an older pattern for the older models. And you know what? Thank you, because you got us to where we are today. But yeah, so, which brings me on to the Akatran. I mentioned the Akatran earlier with Minka Lesk. She, in the books, has an Akatran pattern las gun, and it's a bullpup design. Now, a bullpup design is something that it's in a real-world rifle, it basically moves the action further back and gives you a longer barrel, so you can actually have accuracy at range in a shorter package. Now, why is that in a las gun? I'm not sure, but it looks cool. And in this, I guess it's issued, because it was normally seen on the old Elysians, so it would have been issued to paratroopers or drop troopers. So that makes sense that they want to have a shorter carbine because it's less to carry. But it offers like no distinct real ballistic advantage in this case. It's more just shorter las gun for drop troopers. And I do think the Akatran las gun looks really cool, because it is the 40k version of the standard weapon system of the British Army at the moment, the SA-80, which has gone through many iterations. We're on A3s now, and you'll see some pictures from here where this is where we're at to with it now. But yeah, so moving on now to the actual painting style of this. So with these guardsmen, I've just been painting them up green cantrell pattern lasgun with the standard US dark green camo on them, and then the cantrell pattern lasgun is just another, you know, cantrell pattern dark green with lead belter over the top on the metal bits, and then highlighting the bits where the metal stands out, like that laser sight / carry handle on the top. So you've not seen my face for a while, and it was turning into a bit of an only hands thing, and looking at the creative camera angles I've been doing and focusing, I thought I'd give you a break from just watching me paint something for now. So to talk to you about this next part of the personal weapon system of the Guardsmen, we're going to talk about bayonets. And I'm not going to do as good a job as explaining the need for a bayonet as this video can.
Modern armies still use the bayonet.
That's it, yeah, so you can all see the bayonet. The bayonet is designed to kill. When a bayonet is produced in battle, fixed to a rifle, the enemy, my goodness, it's got a considerable effect on their morale. Now today I'm going to show you how to kill with a bayonet. What's a bayonet used for? Kill! To kill what? Yeah. With what? A bayonet! Well done, forward! High mark! One thrust at a number of enemy. At the walk, advance! And guard! Da! 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 Any questions?
Iconic. So here we are with the final part of the home stretch. We're looking at equipment. Now, what we've got up here is the picture of the Guardsman back in his little sprue stage. Is we can see more clearly the webbing, the knee pads, and the day sack that the soldier's carrying. Now, as I go on to paint here, what I'm using is brown. So I like putting up leather, sort of like a leather look on these Guardsmen, just to sort of cut in between the lighter browns of the khaki and the greens of the greens of the body armor. And I just think it looks pretty well. Could be leather, could be fabric. Who knows exactly what the Imperium is making their belt kit out of. Now, when I say belt kit, what I mean is load carriage systems like webbing. Now, British Army webbing, at the moment, the system being issued is called a Virtus. As with the body armor, it's a complete system of carriage. Now, what I pop on the screen here is the older Mark 1 Virtus webbing, like we're on Mark 2 now. And basically what it is modular load carrying systems. So you get the belt and the suspenders or harness, and you can then add and move pouches as necessary. Now, we practically all have a standardized layout of where we like having things, but then it depends what job you're going to be doing as to how you might move them around. Load carriage for the Guardsmen, you're looking at a couple of magazines, because a lasgun battery or magazine can fire like thousands and thousands of rounds. So they're only going to need to carry a couple of magazines for a prolonged engagement, whereas for a normal soldier now carrying, chemical ammunition like bullets, it weighs a lot. If the standard carrying capacity of a soldier is 120 rounds of 5.56, that's a good few kilograms worth of ammunition you're carrying, and then you want to carry more because more bombs, more bullets, more water for the slaughter. You want to carry the essentials if you're going into a firefight. So on your webbing, you're generally going to carry, as I just said then, bombs, bullets, and water for the slaughter. I prefer to carry, my magazines, 2 litres of water, weapon cleaning kit, and any extra med kit that I'm going to need, and then some grenades for carrying them. And that's the sort of layout you'll get on webbing. Webbing is the stuff you use to fight. And you can see here with the extra pouches in this photo, it's a modular system, and you can get these pouches and add them on. So whatever load you need to carry is what pouches you can add and take off. Like there you can see you've got the dump pouch for dropping empty magazines in the middle at the bottom. You've got the med kit that's clearly identified, and then you've got like different pouches for different things like water bottles, just utility kit or entrenching tools, because we definitely need to keep using entrenching tools. They're a very important bit of kit. Now, looking at the back of the Cadian, he's got a small pack on. Now, most of us in the military will carry something like this, an off-the-shelf like Camelback Motherload. I've had mine since 2014, and it is still going extremely strong. I love my Camelback, but a Camelback can carry, enough for a day's worth of operating. A few rations, ammunition, wet and warm kit like Gore-Tex to keep you dry, maybe a jacket to keep you, or a jumper to keep you warm, and then you can carry a bit more stuff in there like radios and some more rations. 24 hours is what you 12 to 24 hours is what you'd be aiming to live out of a day sack for, because you'll be operating out of a Bergen or a vehicle, which can allow you to operate for longer. But what this guardsman is carrying is something like this, which is a 17-litre assault pack, or what we call jack sack, like a jack individual, not team player. Now, these jack sacks are smaller, lighter, and you can just about carry a bit of ammunition, a bit of water, and a radio. They're not there for sustained operations. They're there for quick attacks, assaults, and stuff like that. Nothing particularly longer than that. So this guardsman isn't going to be sustaining his troop or himself for very long. He's just there for a quick scrap, and that's what we like to see. So that's it. Thank you for bearing with me for the long video. This is my first attempt at sort of a long form edit and a long form content creation. You notice I probably in some of the voiceover at the start, I mentioned only painting one miniature in a dynamic pose. I realised through editing that I didn't have enough footage, and instead of reusing the same footage constantly, I decided I was going to paint another miniature. And then the helmet, the old Gen Cadian helmet with the scrim on, because I found it and I wanted to paint that to add a bit of context. I found a lot out whilst recording this video about, camera angles. I'm using a Samsung Galaxy S23 as a camera, so where am I, putting it to get the best focus? Is it the best for painting miniatures? No. Is it good for interviews like this? Yes, with the extra little microphone, it's pretty good. Or talking to the camera. So, there's still a lot for me to learn. Hopefully you've put up with the crazy cuts and the placing of the pictures. This is all still very much a learning experience for me, but I hope you've learned something as well, especially if you weren't aware of some of the gear that we use or that is used by the British military, and how it could relate to Warhammer, and how you can relate your Warhammer or your hobbying to real world military kit and equipment. Threw in some in-jokes in there about the SLR and the bayonet video. I love the bayonet video. Hopefully you enjoyed all that being put in there. And yeah, hopefully you join us around for the next episode. Please do comment any improvements you want to see made. And yeah, any advice you've got, I'd love to hear it. And anything you'd like to make me to make a video about that I might be able to add a bit more context to. But yeah, thank you very much, and see you in the next one.